Hello students watching from home. My name is Matthew Razi. I am a doctoral intern at the University Counseling Center, and today myself and my co-presenter Vanessa Campo are going to be talking about stress management. This is an outreach presentation that we typically give live in like a classroom setting with people, but because of the current events and everything that's going on, we are going to offer this to you via a pre-recorded video slideshow. So I am going to take about the first half of this slideshow where I'm going to talk about what stress is, components of stress, things that we can do to be proactive in managing stress, and then also what we can do once we do become stressed. This is not about eliminating stress. That would be practically impossible. This is about managing stress. This is about learning some skills and having some strategies for effectively coping with and managing stress. So I am going to ask you a bunch of questions as the slides go on. I encourage you to think carefully about the questions that I'm asking. Feel free to write stuff down. Feel free to jot notes down. And if you have any questions at the end of the presentation, feel free to ask us questions via email. And I just really again want to say welcome, and I hope that you enjoy this presentation and find it useful. So let's get started. All right, so let's get started. Let's start the conversation off by, I like to call it kind of teasing it apart a little bit, this word, stress. I think sometimes we throw the words stress and anxiety around, and sometimes interchangeably, but let's just take a focus on stress right now, and let's take a look at three really important components to stress. The external events, what the stressor is. Then we're going to look at some individual differences. How does a person interpret the external event? And then we're going to look at their response to the event, which is going to be informed by their interpretation of the stressor. So we're going to look at these three kind of components of stress in a little bit more detail. So how can you tell if you are stressed? Let's take a look at some sort of aspects of ourselves that we can, that kind of help to cue us in on the fact that maybe we are stressed. And we're going to look at four of these aspects. We're going to look at emotions, we're going to look at thoughts, we're going to look at behaviors, and we're going to look to our body, our physical experience of the world. So again, these are kind of aspects of our lives, dimensions of our lives that cue us into the fact that maybe we're feeling stressed right now. So let's focus on emotions for a moment. There are many, many emotions. This is not an exhaustive list of any of these aspects. These are just some common examples. So examples of some emotions might be anxiety, feeling fear, fearing moodiness, feeling irritability. Some others that aren't on here could be things like anger, frustration, maybe confusion. And again, there's many more. I would just encourage you to take a moment here and think carefully, what might be some of your biggest cues, some of the emotions that you tend to associate with stress? So feel free, when I ask these questions, I'm not going to take too much time, but feel free to pause if you'd like to do a little bit of introspection and think about some of the questions that I'm asking, or just feel free to keep going, it's up to you. So let's take a look at thoughts. What are the actual content of our thoughts? And then also maybe what are some of the ways that we're thinking right now? So inability to concentrate, forgetfulness, worrying about the future, low self-esteem. Again, it could be the content of our thoughts, like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed right now, I'm worthless, I feel stressed, I feel anxiety, I feel panic. Or it could be the way that we're thinking, the way that we're relating to our thoughts. Like, again, maybe inability to concentrate, maybe thoughts are racing, maybe thoughts are kind of tangential or kind of just loosely associated with each other. There's not a coherent story that we're telling in our mind to ourselves. All ways that we can be cued in on the fact that we might be feeling stress. So let's take a look at some behaviors here. And again, not an exhaustive list, but some common examples: crying, grinding teeth, increased use of drugs and alcohol, changes in appetite, procrastination. Some additional ones might include sleeping problems, sleeping too much, or having trouble falling or staying asleep. All of these behaviors, and sometimes the behavioral aspect is one that we can both learn to recognize in ourselves. Like if we see our legs shaking a lot, maybe we're like, oh, maybe that's kind of letting me know that I'm stressed right now. My body behavior that I'm doing is alerting me to the fact that maybe that belongs more in the body, but we'll get to that one in a second. But also, other people can be helpful here. This is where if you have a counselor, family member, or even friends and just acquaintances can be like, well, you know, I've noticed that you are doing this thing more often, like you're maybe sleeping more than you usually do. Like I wanted to hang out with you, but you said that you were sleeping, or maybe you're spending a lot more time playing video games, or maybe you're drinking much more than usual, or I've noticed you crying. These are all behaviors that other people can help to kind of point out to you and say like, hey, are you okay? And maybe you can be that person for someone else and be kind in the moment and say, are you okay? I've noticed that you're exhibiting these behaviors. Let's take a look at the body, because this is an important one too. Things like increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, sweating a lot, muscle tension. A lot of us carry stress and anxiety in our shoulders and neck area. So feeling that level of muscle tension increasing, sweating more than usual, just being aware of the way that our bodies exist in the world can be really helpful and help to, again, cue us in on the fact that maybe we're feeling a little bit more stressed than usual. So as I mentioned earlier, stress, you will never, ever, ever be able to get rid of stress. Stress actually serves a function for us as human beings, and especially for you as college students. Stress motivates you to get out of bed in the morning. It motivates you to finish that paper. It motivates you to raise your hand in class when you need to, or email your professor. Stress is what helps us to get the things done that we need to get done. Also, in the event of an extreme danger situation, like a fight or flight situation, stress prepares you to act really quickly. That's why we do have an increase in blood pressure. We begin to sweat more, and we're ready to kind of run or fight. That's one of the positive aspects of stress. Now, if we're sweating or we're having stress responses when we're trying to take a test, that's when it becomes unhelpful. Stress can also result in new perspectives, gaining a little bit of a different perspective because our body and our minds are kind of pushing us to engage in the world in a different way than we have. It also adds anticipation and excitement to life. Stress is one of the reasons that thrillers and horror movies are so popular, because we can actually kind of feel the emotions of the characters that we're watching, which is often, of course, very stressful. So, of course, stress is a part of existence. It motivates us, but too much of it, or too much of it that's not managed in a really effective way, can lead to the negative aspects of stress. So let's just take a look. I mean, I'm sure you probably don't need me to even tell you this, but let's look at some of the negative aspects of too much stress, the unhelpful stress. So we have mental exhaustion and illness, feelings of distrust, rejection, anger, anxiety, and depression. Stress has also been connected with physical illnesses, physical exhaustion and illness, things like headaches, upset stomach, rashes, insomnia, ulcers, high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke. And really our immune system response can be decreased with too much stress or stress that's not managed effectively. All right, so here we have, this is a really neat diagram. This is one of my favorite. I love showing this to the clients that I work with. This is called the Yerkes-Dodson curve, if anybody wants to be a nerd about it. But this is the Yerkes-Dodson stress curve here, where we see stress on the x-axis here, on the horizontal axis, and performance on the y-axis, on the vertical axis. So you can sort of see here, with minimal stress, once we start out at zero, when there's no stress, there's also no performance. So we see as we go up a little bit in the stress level, that's our stress kind of pushing us, saying, finish that paper, score that goal, do that thing that you had to do, go to the grocery store and get some food, eat a healthy meal, exercise a little bit. Stress is pushing us, motivating us to accomplish those things that we need to do. And then into the yellow here, we see this sort of zone of optimum stress, this point at which stress is pushing us to, and motivating us to accomplish the things that we need to do, but it's not debilitating at this point. It's not preventing us from accomplishing the things that we need to accomplish. And once we hit this point at the very top of the curve, we hit this moment where stress is at its optimal level, and any little bit of more stress or stress that's not managed effectively begins to become debilitating, begins to become de-stress. So the green and the orange are eustress, or good stress, stress that's motivating. The orange and the darker orange and the red, that's the de-stress. That's when stress begins to become too much or too debilitating that it's preventing us from accomplishing the things that we need to do. So what I want you to take from this curve here, this diagram, is just that stress is not inherently bad. There's nothing about stress that naturally means that it's bad. But stress that's not managed effectively, that's when it begins to become troublesome for us. So let's take a look in the next few slides. How do we begin to manage this stress? So let's talk a little bit about this word resilience. This is a really cool concept. Resilience is the capacity to withstand stress. This is kind of our first line against that debilitating stress that I was just talking about. So being resilient means learning to work through emotions and the effects of stress and painful events. And if you take nothing else from this entire presentation, I want you to take the fact that resilience and the ability to manage stress are both things that can be learned, are both things that you're not just born with some number, you're not born with resilience level of 2. You have the ability to go from 2 to 3 if you are intentional and you work hard and you manage your stress effectively. You can gain resilience. You can become a stronger person, which I think is a really optimistic idea and one that maybe we need right now because this is a very stressful time for everyone. You have the ability to learn how to manage your stress more effectively and how to gain resilience. Stress management, again, is learned, it's a skill. It's the ability to maintain control and functioning when situations, people, and events make excessive demands on us. And all of this begins with awareness. And this goes back to that one of those very first slides when I was talking about sort of the aspects of our lives that kind of cue us into when we are stressed. That's why that's so important, is because we need to know when we're beginning to become stressed and when we need to start to activate those strategies that we're going to learn, and we're going to talk a lot more about them as this presentation goes on. But it all starts with this awareness of where you are in the world right now and what you're feeling and what you're thinking. So let's continue and let's start to take a look at some ways to manage. So in the next couple of slides, I'm going to be talking about these 5 stress management steps. And just real quick, we're going to talk about recognizing, committing, stepping away, evaluating. And then Vanessa's going to take over and she's going to talk a bit more in depth about self-care. There's so many different ways that we can learn to manage stress, and they're all so individual. But here's just a few that we can kind of throw into the mix, and I encourage you to really carefully consider your own ways to manage stress. But meditation, taking deep breaths, mindfulness activities. And actually, if you are interested, you can take a look at the Counseling Center website. There's going to be some mindfulness activities on there, some videos that you can use. Exercising, spending some time in nature, being intentional about relaxation, taking some time to sit in the bathtub and have a bath bomb and just relax and care for yourself. Sleeping well, connecting socially, joining a club, eating well, reducing caffeine and reducing alcohol and reducing tobacco if you use any of those things, and using some time management skills. So let's take a look. Let's go one by one, and we'll go through these stress management steps together. So step one is recognize. And again, this is going to be reiteration here. Awareness, 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 awareness. It all begins with awareness. Recognize when you are stressed. And how is that? How is that presenting to you? Again, I'm going to keep going back to those first few slides. What are your emotions? What are your thoughts? What is your body telling you? In what ways are you experiencing that stress? What is your first physical cue? And what are some of the other cues that you're experiencing that are saying to you, that little warning light in the back of your head, I'm beginning to become stressed right now. Pay attention to me. And learning to not avoid that little flashing light, learning to maybe take a look at it and say, okay, I'm taking a look at you and I am going to do something about it. I'm going to recognize that this little light is starting to flash and that I need to maybe do something about that. So step number 2 is commit. And I maybe got a little tiny ahead of myself there on that last slide. So this is that warning light is beginning to flash. There's something, there's a thought, there's an emotion, there's a physical sensation that's saying, you're beginning to become stressed right now, right? You're beginning to become stressed right now. So awareness lets us to see, allows us to see that light. Commitment says, okay, I see that light flashing. I see the warning going off. Now I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to make a commitment to do something about my own level of stress and do something intentional to manage that stress. So let's take a look. Let's keep going through the steps here. So step number 3 is step away. And this might sound a little weird because we're talking about committing to doing something about it. We're talking about awareness of the warning light, then we're saying looking at the warning light, then we're saying doing something about that light going off to turn it off. Stepping away isn't about avoidance. It's not about saying I'm going to completely ignore things. It's about, you know what, there's a problem. There's like a check engine light going off in our vehicle. Let's maybe let's turn the car off for just a moment and let's take a look at what exactly that warning light is. Is it a check engine? And if it is a check engine, what exactly part of the engine is it that we need to check? So you can't do that while you're driving 90 miles an hour down the highway, right? You need to take a step back for a moment. You need to turn the car off. You need to step out of the car and you need to look carefully at the warning light and maybe check around the car and look in the engine and get a little bit of perspective on the situation. It's not about avoiding, again, you're still making a commitment to change, but you're making a commitment to change in an informed and careful and thoughtful way. So step number 4 is evaluate. And that's, again, I keep getting just a little bit ahead of myself at times, but that's okay. We're going to talk about evaluating. This is all about being aware of what you can and cannot change. There are some things in this world that we have no control over. The economy, the weather, there's certain things that are just so far beyond our control. Evaluate, this step is, again, once that warning light goes off, we have awareness, we're recognizing it, We're stopping to take a look at it and gaining some perspective. Now we're going to evaluate a little bit. That's that, what exactly is that warning light? Is there anything that I can do about it? Is it maybe, does the oil need to be changed? And is that something that I can do to fix the car? Or is it maybe like there's some serious engine problem that is so far beyond my ability to control? Maybe I need to call in some help here. Maybe I need to call AAA or call my family to come pick me up and get my car towed. Is the power to change the thing within my control or not? And learning to recognize that there are limits to what you can do, and that there are times when maybe you do need to ask for help. And that's when us here at the Counseling Center can come in, because when you recognize, hey, I'm not able to really solve this problem on my own. This is not something that I'm really equipped to handle. I may need to ask someone, and that, again, could be a friend or a family member, or if it's maybe a more serious or concerning issue, coming into the Counseling Center and asking for some professional help and some professional opinion. It can also mean thinking about breaking tasks into more manageable chunks and taking your time with each one. Rather than trying to resolve maybe a big, huge problem, maybe right now, just part number one, like a very tiny little baby step. What might be helpful right now, and something that you can do, rather than thinking that you're going to resolve the whole darn thing in one shot. So step number 5 is self-care. This is the last step. Now, I'm just going to talk very briefly about, I'm going to introduce this topic, and then my co-presenter Vanessa is going to take over and talk a little bit more about some very specific self-care strategies and ways to be proactive about stress management. So self-care is about developing a regular practice. It means intentionally engaging in practices that nourish you and leave you feeling recharged. There's this idea that you can't drink from an empty cup, right? You can't constantly be expecting to keep going without refilling yourself, without recharging yourself, without nourishing yourself. Self-care isn't something that's forced. It's not something that you should have to do. It's something that you should want to do because it's something that nourishes you. And that could, again, mean so many different things to different people. One person may love running and jogging, and the other person may hate it and may not be right for them at all. One person may enjoy meditation or mindfulness activities. Another person may find that to be really stressful and not something that they're interested in at all. One person may find going to the movies or spending some time alone and relaxing at home alone might be really helpful. Whereas someone else might find the same activity not useful. This is really one of those things that this is a you question. This is a question that only you can truly answer. And we can give you some ideas and some suggestions, but really I challenge you to consider what are your personal self-care strategies. And I know Vanessa's gonna probably do something very similar in a little bit. So why should we do self-care? It creates balance in our life, right? Again, this is one of those maybe kind of big concepts, creating balance in our life. And sometimes clients ask me, what does that even really mean? And how do I find balance in my life? And again, this is one of those questions that's so unique to every single person. I would give my 2 cents is that, if you're working 50 hours a week and you're not eating right and you're not exercising and you're not spending time with other people, most likely that's not balance. If you're working, and taking classes, but you're also taking time to spend time with friends and family and eating right and getting good exercise, that sounds a little bit more balanced. That kind of nourishing yourself and your body is counterbalanced with working really hard and accomplishing the things in life that you really have to accomplish, even though they're not always the most fun things and not always things that nourish you in the way that you would like. Self-care maintains health, physical and mental health, and it prevents burnout. It keeps us doing the jobs that we all need to do. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Vanessa, and she's going to talk a little bit more about self-care. So it was very nice to check in with all of you today. And again, I wish you a really happy and healthy rest of the day. Take care.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Vanessa. So, relaxation. True rest and relaxation is restorative and energizing. It's a vital part of our self care. So, we want to make sure that we are taking time to relax throughout the day. Um, Reading can be a great way to relax, whether it's something like a book, a novel, or maybe even just a magazine, meditation or yoga, spending time alone or with friends and family. And that can depend on just your personality. If you find more time relaxing by yourself, or if you'd rather have a friend or family member around to relax, and I'm sure that we could all use more friend or family interaction right now. So I bet a lot of us are on the same boat with that. Spending time in nature, so whether that's taking a walk outside, going hiking somewhere, taking your dog for a walk, however you might spend time in nature, or listening to music. So, a good song can put you in a great mood and help you relax. So, figuring out a song or maybe a whole track of music that can help you relax might be a great idea as you're finding things to do in this stressful time. This next part, I'm actually going to take you through a grounding experience. So we're going to do this activity together wherever you are. Try to get relaxed here. If you're sitting in a chair, try to sit up straight. Feel the ground beneath your feet. If you're sitting on a couch, try to sit up as best as you can. Just feel yourself getting relaxed, breathing in and out. And I'd like to teach you all the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. And it's with all of our senses. So first we want to think about what are 5 things that we can see in our surroundings. You want to take the time, observe the items around you, describe them to yourself. You can count the items. Be very mindful as you're looking around the room. What do you see in your space right now? Name 5 things. And next we're going to move on to touch. What are 4 things you can touch right now? Touching might include things like having some thinking putty or Play-Doh, having grounding objects, washing your hands, holding a warm mug, feeling the sunshine in your face if you're outside, having a nice warm blanket or maybe one of those weighted blankets on your lap right now. What are 4 things that you can touch? Maybe it's a ring on your finger or a bracelet or feeling your nice comfy shirt against your skin. Maybe you feel carpet beneath your feet. What are 4 things you can touch? Next, what are 3 things that you can listen to? What are in your current surroundings? In nature, are you listening to a relaxing playlist? Are you listening to music that makes you emotional? You can do a guided meditation exercise like we're doing right now. For me, I don't really hear anything right now. I hear the sound of my voice and the little scratch in my throat from being thirsty. But pay attention. What are things that are unique to you? What do you hear? What do you listen to? And now we're going to move on to smell. 2 things that you can smell. You might have essential oils or perfume, maybe a nice scented candle, hand lotion. Maybe you've been cooking or baking today and you can smell that. Take a deep breath in and notice anything, 2 things you can smell right now. And next we'll move on. What's one thing you can taste? Maybe you taste minty gum in your mouth. Maybe you've just eaten a snack and you can taste that. Maybe you have tea or a warm beverage, or maybe you're just having water. What do you taste in your mouth? This is an exercise you can do on your own anytime you're feeling stressed or anxious and you need a minute to just relax and take some time for yourself. How do we anticipate and prevent stress? There are many ways we can do this, and it's all individualized, whatever is going to work for you and be the most beneficial for you. But if we can anticipate and prevent stress, we're never going to completely get away with stress, but it's something that we can manage and learn to deal with better. So, setting reminders for yourself, you can set like a calendar reminder, or setting an alarm clock, or like a stopwatch on your phone, something that'll help you set a reminder. Um, a lot of times getting up in the morning is difficult for people and getting going for the day. Sometimes that can be the most stressful part of someone's day. So allowing yourself enough time in the morning to get ready, that could mean sitting out an outfit for yourself the night before, or cooking something for breakfast that's easy to take out and eat in the morning, or having your lunch ready, whatever little tasks you can do that'll make your life easier in the morning. Tracking your responsibilities in a way that works best for you. So that could be putting stuff in a planner, putting reminders on your phone in your calendar, or writing yourself little sticky notes. However that'll work for you, and if you can keep track of that. Um, Take extra care during high stress times, and sometimes this can be the most challenging for people because when we're so stressed, we feel like there's so many things that we need to do. But that's the time when you actually need to take a step back and take extra care of yourself. So, setting good boundaries for when you can work and when you can have a little playtime, or maybe taking an extra long shower that day, whatever might make you feel less stressed and get you through your day positively. Um, what else do you do? What else do you do to anticipate or prevent stress? This is the part where it becomes individual for you, and whatever works best for you. So this is something that we can think about, and we'll move on to the next slide, which is time management. So now we want to talk about time management. What priorities do you balance in your life? Do you have school, work, family, friends, time for yourself? Um, what priorities do you balance, and then how do you balance them? How do you keep your work life and your playtime balanced, and so you have a full life and take care of your mental health? A way to manage our time well too is to understand for ourselves, when do you have the least amount of energy in your day, and when do you have the most amount of energy in your day? Because when you have the least amount of energy, you might want to do things that are more relaxing and might not take as much focus or energy to complete. Whereas maybe in the afternoon or something, when I have more energy, I might save an activity that would take more of that focus or time to complete. So you can schedule your time around that. What do you want to do more of or less of in your day, and making or switching priorities based off of that? Are you allowing enough time for self-care? I think for most people, they probably aren't. So where could you fit self-care in more in your day, and prioritize your self-care? Might be questions you want to ask yourself as you're trying to manage your time, and manage possibly the people that you are spending time with. Okay, so now we're going to talk about sleep hygiene. Sleep is essential for maintaining our mental health as well as our physical health. While we sleep at night, our bodies rejuvenate and heal and get us back to a place of homeostasis. So we definitely want to maintain good sleep hygiene. And one specific way to do that is maintaining some sort of regular sleep schedule. So making sure that you're falling to sleep at night within an hour um, every night. So, for example, if I go to bed at 10 o'clock most nights, I want to aim to fall asleep by between like 9:30 and 10:30 at night, no later than 11 o'clock at worst. This will help your body know when to go to sleep, maintaining that schedule, and doing the same thing when you're waking up in the morning as well. Waking up within the same time period, so then your body gets used to that schedule. Um, Doing relaxing things before you go to bed. You definitely don't want to try to go out and run and then fall asleep. That's not going to help. And once you get those endorphins going, you're not going to be able to relax. Limiting alcohol and caffeine. Um, Prior to some common beliefs, alcohol actually does not help you feel more tired. It's actually going to disrupt your sleep, um, and you're not going to get the most restful sleep that you could if you're drinking alcohol before you try to go to bed. Developing some kind of bedtime routine, so going on along with like doing those relaxing activities before you go to bed, maybe taking a hot shower, doing a face mask, making sure you're brushing your teeth, getting some comfy pajamas on, things like that. And then finally, get blue light filters for your laptop, your phone, possibly skip TV before you go to bed or limit it somewhat so then your body's not getting that blue light and that's going to keep you awake at night. So, just some things to think about. And if we're not maintaining this sleep hygiene, then there are definite consequences of not getting enough sleep. So, there are some consequences of not getting. Okay, and now we want to unplug. So, taking a tech break, turning off our phone, maybe turning off Facebook, Instagram notifications. Um, Try not to always be on, like putting on your best face or feeling like you can't really be yourself. Um, and I think everybody can be themselves to varying degrees depending on who you're spending time with or hanging out with. So just something to be aware of as you're interacting with others. And there can be some barriers to self care. I think these are all quotes of things that I hear very often in my counseling office, um, that you don't have time for self care. But I think we can all have time, and if you can take the time to plan your self care, but then also protect it. So, if I had a plan on Friday night that I was just gonna take some time for myself, maybe take a bubble bath, just hang out, but instead one of my friends asked me out and I go out instead of taking my self-care time, I'm not protecting my time. So instead of going out, I might tell my friend like, "Hey, I really appreciate your offer, but I need some me time and just some time to relax." Um, some people might say that they don't need it, but you probably do. I think everybody needs self care, and it's a way to maintain your mental health, but also be able to interact and be with others when you are. Um, some people might say that they don't deserve it, but self care isn't selfish. It's a way to take care of yourself, as it says, and help to maintain your mental health. Or that people don't like meditating. There is more than one type of self-care than meditation, and I think I've shown that and will continue to show that through this presentation today. So, meditation is not the only way to take care of yourself. Now, if we are not engaging in self-care, there are definite consequences of neglecting self-care, and the big one is burnout. So, burnout is the cumulative process marked by emotional exhaustion and withdrawal associated with increased workload and institutional stress there are stages of burnout, which include um, enthusiasm. So at first you might be you really excited and gung ho about what you're going to be doing in your career or at school, and then if you continue to neglect self care, you might get stagnant where you're doing the work that you need to do, but maybe just performing at the bare minimum, which then can lead to frustration. So, like I mentioned before, snapping on people or um, just not being satisfied with your day to work. And then that can just lead to apathy where you don't really care, you're just doing what you need to do and having sort of like an is what it is attitude. So, neglecting self care can actually be really impactful to other areas of your life as well. So, I think I've given you all some self care ideas throughout, but I wanted to share with the group some different self care ideas. You can, and different kinds of self care are appropriate for different things and at different times. So, something that there's things that you might do daily, there's things that you might just have to do on a weekly basis or just as needed. So, like a daily self care thing might be brushing my teeth, but a weekly self care thing might be doing a face mask, and an as needed self care thing might be getting a pedicure. So, all these things are appropriate for different times and aren't always needed at certain times. Um, when you're thinking about self care, think about barriers that might be in incorporating the self care, but then how can you overcome these barriers as well? So just think about these things as you're trying to incorporate self care into your schedule and routine. Right, and technology is a great way to integrate self care and stress reduction as well. So I wanted to share some apps for stress reduction that um, I have suggested to clients that I use myself, and also other clinicians in our office use. So Calm, Headspace, those are two that I've used. I also really like Insight Timer and Breathe to Relax, and these are all free, but they do have like additional things that you can pay for. So just look them up on your app store and download, and you can kind of mess with different ones and see which ones work best for you. Additionally, I wanted to also share that on our gbsu.edu/counsel, we do have like a guided relaxation activity that's really helpful. So that's another way that you can do these things at home. And will be helpful for stress reduction. I wanted to thank y'all for letting Matt and I be a part of your day. I wanted to share this slide. These are the normal operations of the University Counseling Center. We are not seeing people in the counseling center at the moment, but hopefully we'll get ourselves up and running again here really soon. You can call our office phone for updates. Also, we are keeping the gbsu.edu/counsel. That's our website. We are keeping that up to date and updating students as things change throughout this situation. So feel free to look at that for any updates if you're seeking out counseling services. Again, thank you all for letting us be a part of your day, and hopefully we'll get to see y'all in person sometime. Thank you.